Myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. We are happy that we have been able to sustain this forum thanks to people like you who log in every Saturday to participate in the discussions. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. We have also held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women's Cinema, and others. We have also held retrospectives of Kelly Reichardt and Adur Gopalakrishnan. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and also organize a lecture series in collaboration with colleges and university departments. Today's film, Article 15, was suggested to us by Dhananjay Rai. Unfortunately, he's not able to be at this session because he's hospitalized with dengue. Nevertheless, let me give a short introduction of Dhananjay. He is visiting fellow at the Center for the Study of Developing Societies, Delhi, and a faculty at the Central University of Gujarat, Gandhinagar. He works on cultural theory, political theory, and education. His latest book is Contested Representation, Dalits, Popular Hindi Cinema, and Public Sphere. Since he's not here, I thought I would just open out some of the important issues that this film deals with. It's not a completely fleshed out presentation or anything of the sort because it is something that has been done a couple of minutes ago. This film made in 2019 was the opening film for the 10th edition of the London Indian Film Festival. The title of the film, as we all know, is Article 15, which is from the Indian Constitution. The Article 15 states that the state shall not discriminate against any citizen on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them. And all of us present here, we have seen the film and we know that the film seeks to explore some of these issues in its narrative. Now, as far as the plot of the film goes, it is not based on any one specific event, but there are some multiple real-life cases that happened in the state of Uttar Pradesh, which seems to be the inspiration for this film. One is the 2014 Badua gang rape case, and the other is the 2016 Una flogging incident. And the film has created a small fictional village, Lalgaon, and Ayan Ranjan, who is a St. Stephen's College graduate and an IPS officer, is posted there to after getting this case about the 3 missing girls. Now, in the beginning, it would seem, at least it seemed to me, that Ayan's quest was more of a personal nature. He needed to prove to his partner Aditi that he's out to do something she can be proud of because she comes across as a socially conscious woman. And of course, in the course of the unfolding of the narrative, he appears genuinely pained by the developments and the horrors of the ways in which caste operates in the village. The film, of course, has a large number of characters, and they are quite clearly divided along caste lines. And what is interesting is that one can see the benefits of reservation in the form of Dr. Malti Ram, a Dalit woman who conducts the post-mortem. But she is also powerless when it comes to writing the report. So the struggle for a Dalit, and even more so for a Dalit woman, doesn't end with becoming a professional and securing a government job. She is still necessarily subservient to her upper caste bosses. And this kind of a double marginalization of the Dalit woman is also seen in the character of Gaura. There is that scene in which her boyfriend Nishad eats halwa and brazenly wipes his hands on her dupatta as if it were just another rag. Then there is also Jatav, Dalit himself, the policeman. He becomes the oppressor when he acquires power by becoming a policeman, and he has to be sensitized by the upper caste Ayan. And somehow for me, Ayan's sartorial choice also came across as intriguing. I'm not sure whether in real life police officers dress in suits while on duty, but it seemed here like a deliberate way of underlining his status and difference from the rest of the villagers. I also found the end of the film quite interesting. While Brahmdatt gets imprisoned for 11 years, the Mahant wins the elections. Now, that obviously is not something that augurs well for the villagers. And in the last scene, Ayan is shown sitting with his entire team and eating a simple meal that is sold by a woman. And Ayan asks, "What is your caste?" Something that he had asked right at the beginning of the film, also to his teammates. And everyone laughs. So in the end, it appears as if caste is just another joke. So these are just some of my thoughts, not really strung together very well or anything of the kind, but by way of some opening remarks, I have put them together. So now it is open for discussion. Would anyone like to respond to the film? Yes, Nikhila. Yes, Nikhila, please go ahead.
Yeah. So thanks, Geeta, for stepping in. I know it was the last minute, but thank you very much for stepping in and for really laying out the film, the complexities of the film, the difficulty with drawing neat boundaries with regard to the film. I just to kind of take off from your idea of the sartorial choice. I was thinking of it more in terms of this what people call as this division between India and Bharat. What he seems to represent, what Ayan seems to represent is Saint Stephen's educated, but also someone who has lived in Europe, so a symbol of Western modernity, who is coming here virtually into what is described as Kichad in the end. So he's kind of, and when he gets into the swamp, he says that it's literally like, he's getting into what is the swamp, or what is Bharat. The Bharat where, caste is obvious. He's oblivious to caste when he comes. In this Bharat, there is nothing but caste, or so it seems. So the film to me was setting up this contrast between India and Bharat. And in some ways, it was also like I was seeing this film in the backdrop of the various Tamil and Marathi films that have come with Dalit protagonists. And I was looking at this Hindi film, which again, kind of, unlike many other Hindi films, is not shying off discussing the issue of caste. So it does bring up caste and particularly Dalit politics frontally. But I felt it was in some ways, it was what shall we say? It is as if it's all about Ayan transforming himself. So it is Dalit politics becomes the terrain through which Ayan kind of the character of Ayan transforms itself. So it's still very centrally about the upper caste protagonist, and I thought Dalit politics is coming somewhat more instrumentally in this film. So this was my own sense. But and again, you mentioned UP, and you mentioned how it references certain incidents in UP. It also references Rohit Vemula. It also references when Nishad in the Jeep talks about his dreams, it echoes Rohit Vemula's dreams in his note before his suicide. So it kind of has all these real life references. It does create complexity, but to what end was what I was thinking of. Thank you, Geeta, for letting me speak. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Nikhila, for those comments. Yes, I think you're absolutely right when you speak about this divide between India and Bharat. Would anyone like to carry forward this discussion, or you have something completely different to say? Shaumitro Roy has just joined. Welcome, Shaumitro. Faniraj, would you like to say something?
Yeah. If
Yes.
nobody is there, I came here to listen to Dhananjay to see whether he can give some more perspective into the particular film. The timing of the release, the 2019, is very important in the sense that by that time, a category what is called as Dalit film has already been established by Paranjit, by Nagaraj Manjule, and Gurvinder with his film Anna Gore Dadan, in a sense that the bringing Dalit protagonist into the center and narrating Dalit life through Dalit lived experiences. So, and Ranjit brought it to the mainstream with variety of hues, in a sense that he starting from his Atakatti to Madras, then to Sarpatta Paramparai, and then ending with Nakshatram Najardu, and then Mari Selvaraju had already done his debut film. So there was, and Nagaraj Manjule has come up with Fundry and Sairat, and Gurvinder had already done his Anagora Dadan. And of course, the turn has been already taken about Dalit portrayal in Indian cinema. As according to discussion which went on around 2019 in Kannada cinema circles, was divided in a sense that we started looking at Dalit representation in Indian cinema has taken a radical turn now, that until Paranjit's entry or Manjule's entry, it was Dalits were seen as oppressed people and represented as weak, oppressed, poor, and waiting for someone to save them. And always there is a savior. Savior coming from, again, a powerful elite class or upper caste, and hence taking them out of their trouble. So always Dalit portrayal in Indian cinema is seen as a pathetic condition of Dalits, wherever it is, either in Bihar or in Tamil Nadu or in Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh, anywhere, including Shyam Bengal's film. It is seen that you need someone, Dalits, I mean, a savior from upper caste or upper echelons of society to intervene and rescue them out of their state. And they should be perennially waiting for that savior. So starting from Achyut Kanya until the entry of Ranjit, that's how the discussion goes, until the radical Dalits themselves started making the films and representing themselves, their life, and hence looking and their state of life, and the hero or any kind of release from the oppression has to come from Dalits themselves. So once that was shown, so this film came after that particular stage of entry of Dalit filmmakers representing themselves, Dalit life and conditions of life, and what is the resistance and the modes of resistance, and so on and so forth. So the opinion was divided. So Article 15 was categorized as yet another film of an upper caste elite coming and saving Dalits. Though the references to the happenings in Uttar Pradesh since 2010 were there, including Chandrasekhar Ravan, who also is represented with a character in the film, where people argued that he should have been the protagonist. If Anubhav Sinha intended to be honest and to allow the Dalit narrative to be brought into the Indian cinema, it would have, the hero would have been, or the protagonist would have been, not the Ion, the upper caste IPS officer, but it should have been that I forget his name. That character played as a radical Dalit leader. Nishad's character, which is of course a representation of Chandrasekhar Azad. He should have been the central figure, but the argument went on that it's the voice of Nishad is again suppressed, and Nishad is seen to be again weak and too much. I mean, he is not so much well informed, or he doesn't understand the niceties, and he is seen as rough and a rash reaction to what is going on, and he is seen as succumbing to the mechanizations of the power. Whereas again, including the last scene where they are rescued, and the very last scene, again a controversial last scene where sitting on the floor and eating and then laughing, is seen as an insult to Dalits and Dalits emergence in Indian situation. Again, saying that Dalits has to be at the place where they are, and if any change has to occur, it has to come from an upper caste elite savior. So, and hence Article 15 is nothing but no deviation from the tradition of portrayal of Dalits and representation of Dalit helplessness by upper caste director, and hence it doesn't bring anything new except the technology and the way the screenplay goes. We don't have anything new in it. That was one argument. The other argument is that no. Unlike the films of previous generations before Ranjit, so if you can see it as before Ranjit and Manjule and after Ranjit and Manjule, the argument also went that yes, of course, Anubhav Sinha is an upper caste director looking at Dalit lives. Yes, he is outside the Dalit lives, But you see that the tone has already changed in Article 15. It talks about the constitution, constitutional values, and breaking the caste barriers, and it keeps the centrality of constitution, and hence Ayan should be seen as much more reformed than any other saviors, and that should be a welcome to the Dalit resistance. Yes, but the upper caste voice, reformed upper caste voice, should also find its place in cinema, so that we should forge as a solidarity with Dalit movement. Yes, there is Nishad should have been the central character. Nishad is secondary to Ayan, so on and so forth. So you should see the frame by frame. That was also my argument. Of course, not being a Dalit, that's also questionable. So they say that we look at the screenplay and we look at the mise-en-scene of the film, scene by scene, and see whether there is a tension in Ayan or whether there is a superiority complex and Nishad being placed in the second rung, or the whole surrounding of the plot produces tension in and transforms him. Is it a journey of reformation of Ayan from what he was to what he should be or what he should be looking for? But still, the film ends with that he becoming the leader and no voice from the Dalit, including Gaura. Because the film starts promisingly with that revolutionary song sung in the rain. That's a very beautifully shot scene there about their condition, and we were expecting Gaura to be taking the center stage, but not even Nishad, even Gaura to be taking the center stage, and Ayan being helpful to her or subservient to her, and she should lead the resistance, etc., etc. That's not happening because Anubhav Sinha is Anubhav Sinha, and his is the word view or point of view is his, and hence so it's inconsequential whether some of the mise-en-scene is powerful, pro-Dalit, etc., etc. Finally, it's an upper caste view about Dalit life, which is not equivalent to Dalit filmmakers' point of view about Dalit lives and the way we have to resist the oppression. So it was mainly a divided discussion on Article 15. Either you castigate it as upper caste view or say that it belongs to the same series of the upper caste savior. So amidst of this, yes, these two extreme views are there. So whether we stand at one partisan to one view or other view, because in mainstream media, the film got 4.5 or almost 5 stars because of its narrative style and its technical quality and the performance and all, and of course the issue, Dalit issue being brought to the front, and the power politics which is played against the constitution and sticking to the constitutional values. So for this, it needs to be given its laurels, its due, and hence should be welcomed. So almost all mainstream English media gave 4.5 and 5 stars for the film and appreciated it, and the radical view was against it. So between this, where we should place our view on this particular film, that will lead us to how to see a Dalit film made by a non-Dalit. Article 15 gives what lessons to us. So that seems to be very interesting for me. So one point I always stressed in this discussion was that the very opening scene where Ayan is coming to that village, that one shot which is passingly comes in, I think just it's a shot of very 15 seconds or 20 seconds, where the Ayan is sitting in the back and you can see a book beside him, that is Discovery of India. It's a passing shot. So that is very instructive in a sense that Anubhav Sinha's point of view comes from that. Upper caste, elite class police officer coming to a village which he doesn't know is a journey for him, like journey for Nehru through Discovery of India. As we know, as all of you from a very scholarly institution, you know about nationalism and how to understand a nation and what is the understanding of Nehru's idea, whether Nehru had an idea of India and how he carved out his idea of India through discovery of India, and how secular syncretic idea of India came into existence, and what is the role of caste in Nehru's discovery of India, how he looked at pre-independent India and what his aspirations for independent India, so on and so forth. It gives a sparkling 15 seconds to show that Ayan is along with discovery of India, and he is on to discover caste India, and he realizes the realities of India, and then his journey starts from the end. The film should be taken as that, and there are many shots in the film which points towards that. Of course, he thinks that he is having a position, and his position is very clear. Ayan's position and Ayan's point of view about the whole circumstance in that village and the problem at hand is shown very clearly in that film. But still, until the interval, you can see a gradual progression of his understanding of the whole circumstance and reforming himself. I was arguing, of course, against the grain, that the film has to be seen in its mise-en-scene. Yes, whether Nishad's role, Nishad is seen as second, has been given a second position, or Ayan is trying to understand Nishad and coming to the level of Nishad and making Nishad equal to him in his effort to fight the caste oppression. But there is a one particular scene where they are there, where Ayan and Nishad come face to face. The camera angles and the mise-en-scene is very instructive. In the opening of the opening shot of that sequence, you can see Nishad sitting on the floor and Ayan sitting on a kind of a wooden log at a higher position, and with all his gusto of a police officer, and talking to him from top to bottom. So the camera focuses from point of view of Ayan and talks to Nishad. As the dialogue progresses, you can see Ayan coming down and finally sitting on the floor and face to face with Nishad and talking to him. So they differ in how they understand the situation, but Ayan is in a position now, understanding that his position as an officer is not enough to confront this situation. He has to come to the level and should understand the point of view of Nishad. So the camera shifts from his high angle of Nishad to low angle of, high angle of Ayan to low angle of Nishad, and finally comes in a two shot where they sit face to face on the floor. So this kind of mise-en-scene has to be understood as the language of a film and the language of the director, where the whole idea of Article 15 is to reform an upper caste rather than downgrading the resistance. So it should be seen as a reformative film, which is much needed in India, as long as upper caste doesn't understand, as Peruram Perumal last scene says. I very much like Mari Selvaraj's Peruram Perumal's last scene and the last dialogue, that until you don't understand the caste equations and you understand that we are like you, humans and not dogs, and treat us like humans, that nothing will change. So Anubhav Sinha's point of view is that of a reformation of an upper caste elite to come to understanding about Dalits and becoming one with Dalits. So this is also much needed in India. Whatever we say, the role of the upper caste, it is needed that even Ambedkar believed that the Brahman Shahi, what is required is to annihilation of the caste come from annihilating Brahman Shahi. Even Brahmin should denounce his Brahminism and should become a citizen. So it's a process, it's a discovery of India for Ayan. So the whole of Anubhav Sinha's Article 15 has to be seen with that pivotal Article 15, and not only that was enough, that ideal should be there, constitutional ideal should make an upper caste to reform himself, to understand the realities of caste society to the core, and then start his journey backwards. So the last scene should be seen as a fresh journey for Ayan for his next posting and next facing of the reality, where he has been transformed now, understanding of the caste realities and about his persona and his role should be in caste-ridden India and oppressive-ridden India. So it should be seen as a reformative film, a reformist view, which credit should be given to people like Paranjit and Manjule, because that is the reformation which has happened in upper caste filmmakers. If you look pre-Ranjit films, where that attitude of was not there for upper caste directors, that has changed, including, I mean, one more director which I want to bring in this discussion is Neeraj Gaiwan. Neeraj Gaiwan's Masan is also a larger influence on a host of the post 2010 directors, that no more now an upper caste director can wholly bring a script based on upper caste savior positions. They have to reform themselves, and you can see that Anubhav Sinha's position is a reformist director looking at Dalit lives, and through the film, Anubhav Sinha himself is understanding a whole cinematic world of Dalits, and through his character, he is trying to reform an upper caste into a realist caste conflict in India. That was my position and that was my argument. I don't know what is the reaction of others to this kind of position. So I just wanted to sum up the kind of discussions which happened around Article 15 in Kannada cinema circles.
Thank you so much, Faniraj. That was a really detailed analysis of the film as well as the debates around the film. And as you were speaking, I was reminded of Spivak's essay, Can the Subaltern Speak? In which she is, kind of drawing our attention to the question of whether the subaltern can speak for himself or herself, or it is the elite, upper caste, upper class person that needs to voice the oppression of the subalterns. So that, I think, is also a central question to the debates that you have explicated. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to come in at this point? Madhurima?
Yeah, I was just
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so whatever has been said, I was thinking along those lines only. So in the entire film, I felt I watched the film when it came. Then I watched the film. Then I rewatched the film yesterday. So from this, from these two sessions with the film, what I have understood is the film's focuses on this Ayushman Khurrana as the hero, because even in the scene from the beginning until the end, when Ayan actually rescues the third girl from after crossing the swamp and all, the way he rescues and takes the girl out of that position, it is more like Ayan is fighting both against his superiors and also the caste system. So it is more like the upper caste elite fighting for the Dalits. And also the Dalit characters like Gowda or the doctor, the female doctor, I don't really find their voice or their representation as much. And another thing that I have noticed, which I don't know whether it would really be relevant to say here, that both these two characters, both these two actors, they are actually upper caste Bengali actors. So I don't really see any Dalit representation or any Dalit actors in the film also. But maybe that is the case with most of the films. I don't know about that also. So if we consider the film as the upper caste people's interaction with the Dalit communities, then it is fine. But if we are talking about the Dalit representation or how the Dalit politics is working, then I don't really know, because I don't really see Ayan's any interaction with Nishad regarding those terms, because there is not much conversation going on. It is more like Ayan is fighting all alone against the system and emerging as a hero in the end. And throughout the film, I don't see the hierarchies getting destabilized in any way, except in that scene where the Dalit policeman actually slaps his superior, probably Brahmadatt, that policeman. Apart from that, in the end, it actually glorifies Ayan's position as the hero or as the successful police officer who has been successful in understanding India or the caste system in India and is now probably going to his next journey. So that is all I had to say. But thank you, ma'am, for initiating the discussion and keeping the conversation going on.
Thank you, Madhurima. Any other comments, questions? Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something? Yeah, there is a message from Shaumitro Roy in the chat box where he says, there are very few films made by the Mumbai film industry which actually looks at the Dalit question from the Dalit perspective. Yes, that's quite right. It's a rather correct observation. Because whatever films from the Dalit perspective and made by the Dalit are coming from regional cinema rather than Bollywood.
Yeah, agreeing with that, again, that the question was Article 15 was post-Sairat.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, because
That's true.
Manjule came up with Sairat for a mainstream cinema. I mean, for a mainstream audience.
Yes, and it was also adapted into Hindi cinema, Dhadak.
Yeah,
with,
yeah. No, yeah,
with
which is, you see that with this, not only Hindi cinema, it was also a kind of a remake in Kannada.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But you see that just frame-to-frame reproduction of Sairat. And same also, I mean, we're setting up in a different context. I think Hindi film was set up in Gujarat. Kannada film was set up in Vizapur district. But the setting up of Sairat was itself in a very, its nativity itself matters in discussing caste. Because nativity comes in as Manjule himself says, it's a very peculiar reason in Marathwada, where one part is dry and another part is irrigated. Okay, it comes as a border between that cairn and the caste hierarchy there. So the nativity of lived experience on caste hierarchy there, that what Manjule argues is very much important. So dislocation of it and looking at the caste dynamics, as for the Kannada adoption was a pathetic adoption. Okay, and I didn't see the Hindi one, which also I read that it is also pathetic. And the same that frame by frame films and with almost a remake of the screenplay. Still, why Sairat gives a different experience where other two, which I know couldn't give, tells a lot about point of view of making the films. If Manjule being Dalit, drafts a script or a screenplay, and then you put it in anywhere in India without understanding of the caste hierarchy and caste to oppression and the relation of Dalits with respect to upper castes, can you take it anywhere and put it there and you can make a film out of it? that's questionable, because the other two adoptions, remakes, proves that that is worthless. That you need to have your point of view, and that point of view should be a caste point of view. And of course, Anubhav Sinha is at a disadvantage there, not knowing Dalit lives, don't having lived Dalit experience. And even the radical question to be asked is, why you have to make a film? What urges you to make that film? We instead of you making the film, why can't you support Dalit filmmakers to make the film? So this is one more argument, because the film is, if the cinema as an industry doesn't just come with only you making the film, it also comes that why can't you help Dalit filmmakers to make the film? Whatever investment what you have made in the film, you gathered capital, you invested, you gathered around technicians, you gathered around post-production, all those things, yes, we appreciate. But why you have to do it? Why you don't allow Dalits to do this? Don't you find any Dalits, or don't you feel that Dalits are not competent to make a Bollywood film who have a lived experience of Dalits and making it? So this is another point which should be debated. I don't deny that debate. That should be debated. But the point is whether Anubhav Sinha, people like Anubhav Sinha should attempt to go and make films on Dalit perspective or not, or should they put all their resources so that they could bring up Dalit filmmakers and hence make a change in Bollywood or any other Tollywood or Kollywood or anywhere or Sandalwood. So the discussion is also relevant, and of course that's another part. If you look at the text itself, film as a text itself, the question is, yes, an upper caste filmmaker has made this film, taking a Dalit experience, and of course with all its flaws. What is this Article 15 is about? Finally, what comes out as a message from Article 15? That I say that is very important for me to discuss a film post Paranjit or post Dalit filmmakers' success in mainstream cinema. What one should discuss is how the whole point of view of upper caste filmmakers has changed post that. So we should appreciate the aesthetics of Dalit filmmaking, which influences upper caste filmmakers also. No more Anubhav Sinha can make a film like Achut Kanya. He has to take into consideration that there is a Dalit experience, and I see the Article 15 as most reformative film where an upper caste filmmaker struggles to understand how to make a film on Dalits. It's a learning experience for Anubhav Sinha. Feminists can talk same thing about Tappad. Anubhav Sinha's another film, Tappad. That is the point of view. What I'm saying is, where you position Article 15 in Indian cinema history or Indian cinema philosophy, which is having a plot of Dalit life in it. So that question is always there, whether only subalterns should speak for themselves or any others outside subaltern classes should speak of that, and what is the grammar non-subaltern artists should have to portray life, whether they do have a right or not. These are all larger political, socio-political questions which has to be asked in reference to art. It's true. But if you take Article 15 as a text, like any other text, what it says about in 2019, what it says about the caste equations in India, whether that should be appreciated or not. I think I limit the discussion to that, because there is a broader contradiction in if you set up Article 15 in the economics of filmmaking itself. It's a highly reformative film where filmmaking, the whole grammar of filmmaking has radically changed. Anubhav Sinha is very conscious of that.
Thank you, Fani Raj, for further bringing out the complexities of the film. Going back to the chat box, Soumitra Roy again mentioned Sadgati is perhaps one, the other being possibly Gautam Ghosh's Par. Sadgati, rather than being a Bombay film was made exclusively for television. That was how, I mean, Ray was asked to make a film for Doordarshan. So that's a little different. And Gautam Ghosh Par, yes, but again, that would, kind of come in the domain of parallel cinema. So you're right when you earlier said that there are hardly any films coming from the Bombay film industry that looks at the Dalit question. Unless we go back to, Bimal Roy's Sujata and all of that, again, problematic in its own way.
And sorry for again coming in.
Please come in, no problem.
Sadgati was again, Par and Sadgati were questioned. Even Gautam Ghosh was questioned. I mean, post I think Dalit film Renaissance, these questions becomes relevant. They say that Sadgati is a Premchand's story. Okay, anyway, Premchand's story, and there is nothing new in Satyajit Ray's point of view. Like Satyajit Ray's point of view on women's life and Dalit's life, if you see that, Satyajit Ray again goes in a beaten track. I mean, even you like Satyajit Ray's aesthetics and you are appreciative of his Sadgati is in that sense pathetic, in the sense that it doesn't understand, because if he can bring the communal issues in Gare Bhaire with such a flair, even adopting a very epochal novel of Rabindranath Tagore, the point of view of Satyajit Ray is very clear in Gare Bhaire or in Ganashatru, where he understands the vibrations of Indian politics during 80s, or early 80s and late 80s in Gare Bhaire and Ganashatru. You can't see it in Sadgati. Sadgati again goes to that same deck, a kind of a portraying Dalit life as a weak and vulnerable and waiting for someone to rescue them. So it doesn't the intellect of Satyajit Ray doesn't contribute anything new perspective to Dalit life through Sadgati. And Par more of again argument, again the comment from Dalit critics is that Par the class question comes more important than caste questions, because the whole migration of the couple from rural area to urban area, when they come to urban area, it's no more a caste equation. It almost what is depicted is a class equation. So what plays out in Par is most class conflict than in caste conflict. So these are the debates which are post Dalit Renaissance. These are the discussions which come up. So we have to be taking up in that spirit itself. There is no avoiding for that.
Okay. Yeah, Soumitra, please come in, Soumitra Roy.
I just wish to make a couple of points over here. I've been hearing what Panita has been talking about. I think there are certain basic things which we need to think about. I think that when we are trying to make a film on caste, or when Bombay film industry or any other film industry is wanting to make a film which is based on caste, which is based on gender, I think there are three things which need to be kept in mind. One is that, is the filmmaker bold enough to invest in such a topic which might be very controversial, and where he might think that commercial filmmaking might be at risk, whether people will go and watch it or they will take sides or not, whether there will be a negative publicity about it and all that. So they might not be bold enough to actually take the thing up. I think that if you look at what Bollywood with its single quote has done, I think for a long time they have played completely safe with topics which have which tend to go onto the other side of the border, caste being one of them, religion being one of them. Okay, so gender being another. So I think that they have tried to essentially play safe, and filmmakers who have gone beyond the beaten track, they have also tried to keep that in mind. Okay, so if you're dealing with the communal question and you think about So I was taking up par, which is, he says, is more of a class question than a caste question. Possibly so, but still, I think that with, say, Gautam Ghosh making a Hindi film, he was very conscious of the fact that he needed to he needed to play safe. Okay, I can't remember any mainstream Hindi filmmaker trying to actually think about caste, gender, and class. Okay, or the communal issue very boldly. They always try to paper over the whole issue. Okay, uh, I don't think so. You won't find a Chopra or a Johar or somebody like that who has enough money in hand to take that sort of a risk. That is the first point. Second, I think that uh, it's not a question whether a non-Dalit can make a Dalit film. I don't think it is always that question. The question is, I in my very humble submission, I think the question actually is whether the person is sensitive enough, irrespective of what caste I belong to, whether I'm sensitive enough to understand the other caste. Okay, so trying to make a Dalit film or trying to make a politically inclined gender slash communal slash Dalit film slash religious film, what is happening is that you have to be sensitive enough to. And I don't think that if you look at the history of Bollywood, again, the same thing. They have never tried to actually go to pour below, okay, pour below the line. So it's always at the surface level. Okay, so when you're watching a Thappad or when you're watching a Pink, it's essentially it goes down to the level of verbosity. Okay. So maybe one of the better caste films, for example, communal films, for example, where there is a standpoint about, say, about nationalism and all that. I think it's perhaps Tamas, although it was made primarily for television. But I think if you look at the series, it is much bolder than anything else. You can think about Garam Hawa, perhaps. So the problem, I think, with Bombay film industry is that it doesn't invest itself and wish to take a standpoint. Okay, where come what may, I will tell what I need to feel because I feel I'm sensitive to it. Okay, that is perhaps the problem. So when we are talking about such films, Article 15, we rate it very highly. We are looking at it very highly because of the fact that Anubhav Sinha perhaps has shown enough sensitivity. So, like say when you're talking about uh, partition question, and you're looking at something like say Srijit's Raj Kahini. Okay, Srijit Mukherjee's Raj Kahini. I think till a certain point in that movie, along with the women characters, there's a lot of sensitivity which is involved. There's a lot of investment sensitivity that makes it so bold. So when we first saw Raj Kahini, there might be a huge discussion somewhere. So at least there is a point of view which is there. Srijit is willing point of view. But mostly Bollywood has not been able to do this over the last, say, 50, 60 years. With the amount of films that have been made, there are very few examples where the standpoint of the director has been very, foundationally, it has been very certain. That is the second point. Third, I think, is that when you are making such a film, it also boils down to a point whether the actors are willing to take this risk of being involved in this film. Okay, so there is also whether a film will be made according to how we see the topic. That is also a question. So, with respect to caste, if somebody make a film on caste has a huge, you might say, history in our country. So the actor perhaps feels that I'm perhaps going to become too colored, or I might be taken to be taken along one political camp or other, and he's not willing or he or she is not willing to take the risk. I think these are the three main factors which have actually deterred filmmakers from making films, although we should be having much more of such films. That is why. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you, Soumitra Roy. Any other comments? Sanjay Kumar, would you like to say something? Okay, Tarkeshwar, you have unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah, the discussion is getting interesting in the sense that uh, some of the basic issues have come out. How to understand this film? One, to look at it as a film about caste oppression, and then the second is looking at this film as uh, a reformation film about caste, and then whether it is a Dalit film or not. I think Padiraj was also trying to say that though it is a reformist film, but it is post-Dalit film. So in that sense, it is different from the earlier. Uh, so in that sense, we need to probe what do we mean by caste and Dalit. So they are not interchangeable. And why should we put the burden of caste on Dalit? Is something that we need to think about. Caste is the experiential reality of everyone in India, whether they live in India or in Bharat. So I don't make that kind of distinction. Maybe the way caste operates in quote unquote Bharat and India could be different, but caste is a lived experience of everybody in India. But the lived experiences might differ from their locations. So in that sense, it is not the burden of Dalits to speak on the caste, that everybody has to speak about the caste. But the question is, how do they speak? Or what do we call as Dalit? Again, when I say Dalit, we need to make a distinction about the category called SC and ST and Dalit. We also use them interchangeably. Just because somebody belongs to the category SC or ST, it doesn't mean that they have there is perspective, or as somebody was trying to put the word sensibility. So in that sense, we need to make that distinction too. For me, Dalit is a political category. It is not a community category, or not, nor is it a state category, where state recognizes certain communities and through its action tries to group certain communities. That is SC and ST. I don't think they can be interchangeably used as Dalit categories. So unless we define what is Dalit, then we can talk about whether it is a Dalit film or not. Or alternatively, we can simply equate Dalit with SC and ST. Only if SC and ST people do, then it is called Dalit. But again, it is problematic because regionally, what constitutes SC and ST varies, and in some places, STs don't join Dalit politics, and in some places, they do join Dalit politics. So in that sense, uh, it's a varied categories. So that we need to keep in mind while using the terms like Dalit film. So unless we specify and define what is a Dalit film, it will be very difficult to understand what we are saying when we call something as a Dalit film, post-Dalit film. That is the point that I wanted to make. And the second one is about oppression. So when we talk about caste, should we always talk about only caste oppression? Is another question. Or you should show uh, certain communities as being victims without agency, is another question that comes up clearly. Yes, we can show them as victims, we can show them as agents, either agents of perpetrators or agents of resistance. So certain communities might act as agents of oppression, certain communities might act as agents of how do we represent them, the communities? Through individuals. Again, this dialectic, whether when the individual is represented on screen belonging to a particular community, that individual represents that community or only that individual, is an interesting thing. When a IPS officer belonging to upper caste is represented on screen, is he representing all upper caste, or is he being represented only as an individual? Is an interesting issue to be looked at. Look at this film itself. When he comes to that place, I don't think he has any intention of solving the issues of caste. In fact, the entire narrative moves in such a way that he is not interested in solving the issues of caste, but to ensure that the issues of caste don't hamper his investigation. What has been taught to him as proper investigation by a police officer. So he's trying to ward off other elements creeping in to his investigation. So, and then interestingly, he gets sensitized about caste not by the protest that is happening in and around him, dumping of the garbage in the road, or these villagers coming and speaking to him and representing to him. More than that, his love for another girl motivates him to look at it in a different perspective. That is quite interesting. What is the motivation for him to sustain whatever the uh, project that he has undertaken now? Uh, that's that inspiration is coming from a girl who is sitting elsewhere, and while chatting with her, uh, it is coming in. That is also quite interesting in this text. So what I'm trying to say is that just because somebody belongs to a particular community doesn't mean that they represent a particular politics. And unless we define that politics, we will not be able to identify it. So what we need to look at it is what we call as caste oppression, and why only we think certain films represent caste. For me, all the films that have been made in India, whether they like it or not, represent caste. You can't escape caste even when you're making a film. Even trying to escape from the caste is the mark that the caste exists there in its absence. So in that sense, caste is present present through its absence, or it is present in some other way. Just to recollect the movies that I watched when I was a kid in Canada in 80s or 70s, the representation of food. There is no representation of non-veg food. Non-veg food will come only when there is a villain who will be eating non-veg and he will be raping girls. So this equation of the non-veg eating communities and the rape and the uh, their undesirable elements in a civilized society is something that the films were trying to tell me and teach me when I was a kid. So in that sense, the caste is very much present there in those films too. So our understanding of caste itself should, and the way we are trying to understand them on screen, I think we need to change that. So the question is how the caste is represented, or what is being represented as caste. Only the oppression is being represented as caste, or as we are now arguing, not only the oppression, a resistance is also there now in the last 60, 70 years in India, or even more than that. So that resistance should also come in there. That voice should also come in there. Or the question is, what is the perspective through which we need to represent it? See, in this film itself, it's quite interesting. It begins, as everyone has pointed out, uh, the point of view of the narration begins with the IPS officer. But interestingly, for whatever the reasons uh, that others were speaking, like because it is a post-Dalit, quote unquote, post-Dalit film, uh, at the end, Nishad is able to speak. So even when the police officer is absent, when Nishad is speaking to Gora, the girl, the way he is speaking, as Nikhil was trying to say, it reminds us of Rohit Vemula's words that he wrote in his last letter. So in that sense, even in the absence of the main protagonist or the main point of view from which the narration unfolds, the other scenes will come in there. That's the way it has been forced. So there is a shift certainly in the way the caste issues or caste oppression is being represented. But caste oppression is a violent activity, exercise of power in its uh, at its height, but visible height. But there are issues of caste which are not easily visible uh, in terms of violence, which are completely non-violent, but which sustains caste hierarchies. So I'm trying to say that even when the film is not representing the caste oppression, nor resistance to it, there is a caste that is being represented in that film. That we need to understand, and the politics of that we need to understand, and how the in India the films are responding to these issues of caste, whether in terms of violence or resistance, or in terms of day-to-day activities, which for which we are completely blind that they're caste, because we think that the caste exists somewhere in the interlands of UP and BR. It doesn't exist in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Delhi. That is the problem. I think these films also to some extent perpetuate. But when I'm saying that, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in UP. The way it exists in UP should also come on screen. But we need to understand the modes of representation, the points of view, how the points of view shift in the text, and why it is shifting. And if we are able to trace it historically, that will be quite interesting to understand who is speaking and why they are speaking, and in what manner they are speaking, and what is the politics of it. One is to look at the politics of the representation. The another is how the representations are interpreted over a period of time. That is also quite interesting to look at. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tarkeshwar, for foregrounding this crucial issue of categories themselves. You know, what is a Dalit film, so to speak? This is something that we encounter even when we are talking about women's film. You know, what is a women's film as a category? Are films made by women's films, or are films that deal with women's issues women's film? So addressing these categories is also something very important in analyzing a film, and thank you for raising this. Yagnashri Salva in the chat box says that's an extraordinary intervention, Tarkeshwar sir. And Shaumitro Roy says, completely agree with you, Geeta. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we will then end this session here. Thank you all for attending, and thank you for your comments, your interventions. Thank you very much. Good night and have a nice Sunday.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Madhurima.
See you next week.
Yes, thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.